we doing? Good morning. Pretty excited about today. This is kind of the last big one, for us. Competitive practice. I got a lot of respect for what D'Amico's done out there. Type of person he is, type of coach. The way that team plays. They hustle, they hit, they're disciplined. So it'll be a good test for us. And I know we can get better. This will help us get better. So, and hopefully we can reciprocate that to those guys as well. So, really excited about today. Be smart and get good work done. Questions?
You activated Wingo last practice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, when a guy's been out that long, you got these roster decisions coming out, how do you, factor in the vision of what he can contribute right away as you're kind of weighing what you need to do at that position?
It can be tough. It's hard, because there's really not enough time. But he's done all he can do to this point. Now it's time for football to see where he's at. And it's tough. It's tough. There's no easy answer to that. I don't know if we can find out fast enough. So we gotta make a decision there. But he's doing individual 7-on-7 stuff, or not 7-on-7, but some individual, some group. He's not going to get any team this week, so that makes it even harder. But we'll see. We'll see. At some point, we're going to need him.
Somewhat related to that, you've said multiple times that Pascal will probably be ready to get back practicing in September. How do you weigh that? Is that do you want to let him miss those first 4 games and go with guys that have put the work in, or is it a situation where he might be back early enough that you want to keep him on the roster?
Good question. I think Pascal could be a little later than we'd hoped. So, that could sting a little bit. It also cleans it up too. At least you're not hoping and waiting and whatever else.
And Brett has said in multiple interviews just how difficult it's going to be for young developing players to make this roster with how good the starters are in the competition. How challenging are the meetings going to be in the coming days to make this 53-man roster?
Yeah, it'll be tough. It's I feel like every year it gets a little bit harder to decide what you want to do. And, I'll just keep bringing it up. We're looking for the best 69 players we can find, and how do we keep all of them? Because we're going to need all of them. And that's the challenge. So, we got some pretty good competitions going. We got some guys that have really raised their play, and they've caught our eye. And there's some guys here, my mind's not made up, that my eyes are open. We're going to take it down to the wire and see if some of these guys really can just take that next little jump, because they've really grown a lot. But, we'll see.
You sort of ask you this every year, right? It's the body of work versus the I don't want to say last impression, but if somebody's rising, right? Maybe they're playing their best football in the camp. So how do you sort of factor those?
Yeah, body of work is always going to speak for itself. But if you're a late climber here over the last 3-4 days, and now today the game, because this is, today's pretty significant. This is really significant, and so does the game. So that's the good news is it's not just this isn't some throwaway practice, or we're not getting. We're about to get some really good work, and so some of these guys are going to go against the goods, and we'll see what they look like. That's good for us and for them.
How was your approach to this week? How you evaluate when you kind of make decisions change since you first got back here?
What do you mean?
I guess, do you enter this week and just the decisions you have to make with the same, philosophies, or has that changed at all in terms of how you evaluate guys maybe in this last week here?
Just from 21, basically when we first got here. I don't know how much. We were in such a different position back then. It was so different than it even is now. So any changes that were made were because of, where we're at now roster-wise. I wouldn't say philosophy, anything has changed. I guess if anything, I just go back to every year I feel like there's more and more importance on the fact that you're going to need every player on the roster and the practice squad. That vet squad is going to be very important. So how do you determine who goes where, and is somebody that you really like them, but you think you can squeak them through, on one end, and versus the guy that you're not. You keep him on the roster because somebody would claim him or pick him up or whatever that case is, but you really like both players. It's just about trying to keep all the good players that you're going to need, and that'll always be true. I think every year that's become more and more significant.
Hey, Dan, how often do you write about being able to sneak a guy through? How tough are those conversations about trying to figure out who can make it through and get back and who can't?
Well, I'll tell you what. I've told you guys before. I lean on Brad for that, man. I use his judgment, and I don't know he's ever been wrong that I can think of in 5 years. So if he says somebody's going to make it through, they make it through, and I trust that. So from my standpoint, it's pretty easy. It's a lot harder for him, but for me, when he says it, he's been right. So, we got to be careful, or he'll make it. But I'm good, So it's really no different than that in the draft. We was somebody we like, and we're sitting there, and we got 10 spots to go, and he says he'll make it. He makes it, and if not, then we make a move. So he's always been right. He's got a hunch and a knack for that stuff. So I just listen to him. I'll come to you next.
Yeah, from your perspective, if the decision is made to keep 3 quarterbacks on the roster, what's the value in that versus maybe keeping that spot with just 2 and having more depth somewhere else?
Well, that's exactly what it is. You lose if you do that. You lose depth in D-line or O-line or receiver or defensive back or linebacker, or you get the point. So how important is that relative to the other positions? And what's hard is, look, you can call it what you want. When you have a year like we did last year, you get affected a little bit by it. It has an effect on the way you think, and depth. We got to make sure that we have the depth.
Follow up to Dan's question about trying to get guys through whatever. Have you noticed that maybe there's a few tougher decisions this year than there have been in recent past, just from where the roster's at too, and you've got limited spots at the end. There's some guys that you probably want to keep. Are there some tough decisions?
Yeah, for sure there'll be tough decisions. I mean, I can think of 3 right now, just off the top of my head, and there's a couple more than that. That'll be tough. It's going to be really, really tough. But that's part of the game, That's part of this whole process. And there again, the good news is there's another practice today, and there's a game to where now you can separate. I think we'll get separation between these two. In the next 2 days, next 2 practices or whatever, practice game.
Dan, outside the media always says, they talk about teams passing games, whatever. But do you go by the old philosophy that the most important things are being able to run the ball and be able to stop the run? Is that more important to it?
Well, I'm always going to believe in that's how you establish. I think that's how you establish yourself. If you've got a strong ground game, then it opens up your offense. It allows you to be explosive. Without it, you can't be explosive. And defensively, if you can't stop the run, then good luck. It's demoralizing is what it is. And so there's a schematic issue if you can't stop the run, but then there's an emotional, psychological issue. Like it's demoralizing. So that's why it's so important. Now, I've said this before. We'll go into games and we'll put it on golf. We're going to throw it 40 times because we feel like we can be efficient in the pass game. Get it out of his hands, catch, run. We got guys that can make plays with the ball in their hand, and maybe we start that way, and then that allows us to run it. So we're not just going to bang our head against the wall to bang our head against the wall, but yeah, philosophy-wise, I do believe it starts with the O-line and D-line. That's just me.
Coach, you had an opportunity to play against the Houston Texans last year. What is the trajectory that you see them on?
Oh, listen, it's it's one of the reasons why I'm fired up to practice against them, because I think these guys are, man, they're on the way up. They've been on the way up. And just the nature of the way they go about their business, the way they practice. I talk about, Coach Ryan's over there. I just got a lot of respect for him. And when you do things the way they do them, and the way that Sundays they go out, they run, they hit, they finish, you're going to be in every game. You're going to have a chance in every game. And they're a young, talented roster. They're guys that love ball. I mean, those guys over there, Brad and I like a lot of those guys too now, and it's like, oh, okay, I can see that. So we're excited to see them today. But, man, it's a promising young roster that does it right, good coaching, and quarterbacks, good player, and he's only going to get better and better. They got weapons. So, they're going to be I think they're going to be a juggernaut for years to come is what I think.
Yep. With Nico Collins, the kind of wide receiver he is, what have you seen from him just as someone that played at Michigan and now is doing well in the NFL?
Well, he's really established himself as a premier receiver. It's clear you lose a player like that, it hurts. That's for sure. But the guy's a crafty route runner. He's got radar, which means he can track the deep ball, make big boy catches, and he plays strong, plays physical. There's really not much he can't do. So, he's certainly somebody that elevates that offense. And I know the quarterback's got a ton of trust in him. You can see that on tape. So when you've got that kind of rapport with your guy, it makes it difficult on defenses. Okay.